What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Slot Podcast. We're back with episode 2, where we're going to be dropping our off-season power rankings part 2. And I'm back here with Adam. My name is Ahmed. Go ahead, take it away.
So today we're gonna jump into the final 16 teams of their drafts and what they did in the offseason. But not only that, we're gonna talk about a couple offseason moves that happened pretty recently. So first up, we got George Pickens to the Cowboys. What's your take on that situation?
So at first, I wasn't a big fan of George Pickens to the Cowboys. I thought that they needed wide receiver help, but I wasn't sure that he was the right option. But as I kind of researched and looked into things a little bit more, I realized that CeeDee Lamb's ability on the inside, running slant routes and things like that, is impeccable. But they need someone to kind of spread the field to allow Dak to make those throws inside. And I think what George Pickens does really well is separate and create that space on the outside. I think they tried to create something similar with Jonathan Mingo last season, but he didn't really have any sort of impact. So they're hoping that George Pickens can kind of become that outside man and help Dak spread the field a little bit more. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, see, for me, this is an A-plus trade for the Cowboys. They're really not losing anything too valuable for them. I think they got rid of a second and a third round pick for George Pickens. Great pickup for the Cowboys just because they got that help they needed with the receiver room. CeeDee Lamb, he's carrying this offense. Dak Prescott, we need to see what he can do with two good receivers now, because you could argue that George Pickens may be top 15, maybe top 10. I wouldn't go to say top 10, but some people would say that. Now, for the Steelers, I don't know what they're doing. Because not only do you not have a QB right now, and maybe you'll count Will Howard as a QB, but do you really want to put him in starting as a rookie? I don't think he'll succeed as a rookie just on his first year. It would probably take him maybe 2 to 3 years to actually start producing like a NFL starting quarterback. I think that Will Howard, he succeeded on Ohio State because of his team. I think he was like a Brock Purdy system quarterback, Jared Goff, that type of quarterback. But I don't know how well he'll do on this Steelers offense with just DK Metcalf catching the ball.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. I think from the Steelers' point of view, George Pickens was in a contract year. He was headed to free agency regardless because he's the type of guy who's going to want to go get his own money. So this is kind of a play it in year for him, and I think for both sides, like he doesn't want to be catching passes from Will Howard. He wants to be catching passes from someone else if he's going to chase that bag this season. And I think Dallas was probably a good spot for that, which is why they didn't get much compensation. But I think as far as where the Steelers are headed, I don't know, man. I thought this was kind of a rebuild year, but then they traded for DK Metcalf, who's kind of a win now player. But then you're right with the quarterback situation. There's not really anything there, so it's kind of a confusing year for the Steelers. And unless they do land Aaron Rodgers, which is kind of what everyone is thinking is going to happen, Mike Tomlin's 8-8 record is going. So we'll see what happens with the Steelers. But I thought it kind of worked out for both sides.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting is that George Pickens declined a $120 million extension deal. So that shows that he's kind of open to free agency next year. He wants to test the market, which also means he'll be playing for a bag this year. This year he's going to have to show out. He's going to have to show teams that he's worth the money that he wants to be paid. Because otherwise it might be a Brandon Ayuk situation where he holds out until he gets the money he wants, which I honestly think George Pickens could have a good enough season, especially with Dak at quarterback. And maybe the Cowboys re-sign him, or he goes to another team that's up and coming. Maybe they have a young quarterback that shows some promise. I could see him maybe signing with Commanders, Bears, maybe the Giants if they have a good QB situation this year.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see what George Pickens is able to do with Dallas if he's able to really play into that contract year. Another piece of NFL news that went down this week was, let's just say, the Saints. Let's not even dive into just being Derek Carr, because the Derek Carr retirement was just kind of the first domino in sort of the Saints season that we're going to be seeing come up. So if you weren't aware, Derek Carr medically retired this week due to a shoulder injury that he sustained when he was jumping out of bounds. I think that Derek Carr is a guy who gave it his all every single season. He played really well up until that 2016 season where he was third in MVP voting, which is great, but then got hurt, and he was never really the same after that. Now, looking at the Saints QB room, we've got Jake Haener, we've got Tyler Shuck, we've got Spencer Rattler. We're talking about Jake Haener, who was drafted pretty late, Tyler Shuck, who's a second round draft capital, Spencer Rattler, who's a second year, fifth round quarterback. Tyler Shuck is probably your starting quarterback for the Saints. I thought maybe Aaron Rodgers could be a dark horse, but it doesn't look like I haven't seen any traction as far as that goes. So the Saints are really in a rebuild here. They need to load up on picks as soon as possible. I would say trade Alvin Kamara since he's an aging talent, but you're gonna get very little compensation for him. So I don't know what you do if you're the Saints. I think the best way to fix it is to go out there and let Tyler Shuck run. Um, Maybe pick up a quarterback from free agency if he's really bad, but if not, then you tank and you go get your star next year. Whether that's Arch Manning, whether that's I don't know, one of the other quarterbacks who's going to be coming out. I know that the top of the draft is not very top loaded next year, but what did you think?
So my deal with the Saints is if they knew, so they had to have known that Derek Carr was having like this serious of a medical injury on his, not even his shoulder, it was his throwing arm too. So if they knew all of this and they knew there was a possibility that he couldn't come back to play this, not even this season, but indefinitely, then I don't get why they didn't go with a first round QB. Because personally, I think there was three quarterbacks that could have went in the first round. That was Cam Ward, Jalen Milrow, and Shador Sanders. Even though Shador Sanders, I don't think he was worth a first round pick. I thought he would go just because of the hype and what everyone says about him. So if my thing is like if you knew you weren't going to get Derek Carr back, then why would you pick a 26-year-old quarterback that hasn't really done anything in his college career?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I guess the Saints are kind of going in a different direction, even though the Derek Carr injury was well advertised. I thought that Kelvin Banks Jr. was an okay pick. I think we went over this last week, but he was an okay pick
Yeah,
at number 9. But if you're headed towards that type of future, just grab your guy at number 9. I know Jackson Dart looks great in minicamp. Even Shador is looking okay in minicamp. We end up going with Tyler Shuck, a guy who is comparable to Jay Kaner, and we don't even know if him or Spencer Rattler is going to start. I think with the round 2 draft capital, Shuck will start, but is he even going to last through the year?
I don't think so. To be honest, I don't think Tyler Shuck has it in him. And honestly, that combine throw just really throws me throws me off. I just don't like him after that.
That combine throw was the worst throw I've ever seen in my entire life.
I think that might be up there with Kenny Pickett's ghost tackle.
There you go.
That was like that was like one of those clips where you just see you just start bursting out in laughter. It's
Yeah, I couldn't even believe
hilarious.
my Um, yeah, that's kind of what was going on in the NFL this week. We had a lot of good mini camps, a lot of good rookies who are starting to look the part. RJ Harvey. I know that Jaden Higgins signed a fully guaranteed contract as a second rounder, first one in NFL history, which is absolutely incredible for him. I know that he's going to be an absolute stud because the Texans wouldn't sign someone to a fully guaranteed contract unless they knew. I know that obviously last year second rounders got 92% of their contract guaranteed, so to some extent, it's not a huge bonus, but it's kind of a memorable milestone. Just to kind of jump into a little fun segment that we have going on here, we just kind of wanted to do an icebreaker. So I thought I'd ask Adam a question. What are your top 5 NFL jerseys of all time? I know that we got the creamsicle, and I'm biased towards the creamsicle, but you drop your top 5. Let me hear it.
All right, this is going to be in no particular order, but I'd have to say for top five best jerseys, I would go Seahawks throwbacks. Those beautiful. I love those jerseys. Kelly Green Eagles jerseys. Those fire. Creamsicle, like you said, Creamsicle Buccaneers jerseys. Those are so good. And then I'd put the Houston Oilers jerseys that the Titans have. You know what
The
I'm
light
talking
blue
about?
ones?
Yeah, yeah, those are clean.
Those are tough. Those are
And
tough.
then at the 5 spot, honestly, I'm gonna put Bengals whiteout. Bengals whiteout is probably one of the best. Either Bengals whiteout or the Vikings whiteout jersey. Those are two very very good jerseys in my opinion.
I like being all black jersey. I love to throw an all black jerseys into a top 5 because those are my favorite. But I understand the whiteout. I mean, with the Bengals colors, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think the Lions black jerseys those could be up there too. Maybe the Falcons, but I don't know. It's kind of overplayed now in my opinion.
That's fair.
I got a question for you. What are who are your top 5 wide receivers all time?
Ooh, good question. I think number 1 has got to be Jerry Rice. I think that's kind of a common answer. I think my number one is definitely Jerry Rice. My number two, I'd say Calvin Johnson, Megatron. That's pretty easy. Number three will
Yeah.
go Terrell Owens. My number four is kind of interesting. I've got Randy Moss at number four. I loved his time on the Vikings, loved his time as a Patriot. And number five, I'm going wild card here. I'm going biased. I'm going Mike Evans. Mike Evans is my number five NFL receiver of all time, Mr. Consistent, Mr.
Yo.
Super. Led us to that Super Bowl in 2019. Don't even know who the quarterback was. Number
Yeah.
five receiver of all time is Mike Evans.
Oh my God. Bro, no AB, no Larry Fitzgerald,
Mike Evans is a better receiver than both AB and
no
Larry
Julio
Fitz.
Jones. What are we doing?
Nope, nope. Mike Evans number five.
That's crazy, man.
It's a hot take, man. It's a hot take. Mike Evans, Mr. Consistent.
I sense some real bias coming from my screen right now, man.
All right, so let's jump into our offseason power rankings, second half. We're going to be diving into the better teams today. And yeah, we got 16 teams to go through, so let's strap in. I think our last pick was, I believe it was me. So at number 16, who did you pick up at number 16 as team?
I chose the Minnesota Vikings at number 16. The Vikings, pretty good. I think they need to figure out if they're going to start JJ McCarthy this next season, or if they're gonna, or what they're going to do with that. Because honestly, we didn't see anything from him last year, so I'm kind of iffy about him, especially since he's coming off of injury. And yeah, I just don't know. I think they'll be solid, but last year might have been a fluke. I think Sam Darnold had a better season than he was expected to have. So I don't know what they're gonna do about that. And they do have a good wide receiver room. They have a decent running back room. So I think they could do pretty decent, but I don't think they'll make playoffs or anything crazy like that.
Here's one thing I'll say about the Minnesota Vikings. You have to start JJ McCarthy. You do not draft a quarterback with the, I believe it was the ninth pick in the draft last year, and not start him in at least his second year in the league. I mean, you've got weapons like Justin Jefferson, you've got Jordan Addison, you've got TJ Hawkinson. You start the guy, you give him a chance, and who's his backup? His backup is Sam Howell. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, you start JJ McCarthy yesterday.
Yeah, honestly, I think the Vikings, they didn't really do too much to like wow me this offseason. It was kind of just they were pretty quiet, to be honest. They didn't really do anything. They drafted a couple people on offense, couple people on defenses. Nothing crazy, nothing you really pay too much attention to. As a Vikings fan, I wouldn't expect much coming into next season. I think you kind of just hope that you can survive the NFC North, which is definitely the hardest division in football right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for them. The Vikings have a lot on their plate, and their draft was honestly horrible in my opinion. I think if you stick and pick at 24, first of all, you're at 24. The Texans, I believe, were at 25 or 26 when they traded it to the Giants. If you're at 24 and you're the Vikings, you're taking calls for that pick. You only had four picks in the entire draft. You're taking calls on that pick for future draft capital, and the Giants traded away a bunch to get Jackson Dart. I'm sure they would have paid the same amount and a little bit more to jump up to 24 rather than 25 or 26. I think the Vikings bombed it. Donovan Jackson he's a solid pick, but you don't have a lot of draft capital. And then to go in your third round and draft Ty Felton, I didn't understand that at all because you already have a good wide receiver room. And now you're picking up a guy who's unproven when there were so many notable names on the board available at round three. So I thought the Vikings bombed the draft, and I think they have a lot to look forward to. But if JJ McCarthy is the guy that people say that he was going to be coming out of Michigan, a winning quarterback, then we could be in line for something different. Could be in line for maybe them picking up a wild card spot, or I mean, I think it's going to be really hard for them to win the division, but there's potential there. I'll say that.
Yeah, so I think their thought process behind getting a guard in the first round was just to address their O line, because Sam Darnold was kind of running for his life most of the time. So I think that could help, but it was a pretty weak draft. Like I said, nothing to really look into, nothing crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that was something they needed to address. They got Christian Darrisaw. They have Javon Hargrave there now as well. So I mean, we shall see what happens.
Who did you have next on the draft?
Next on the draft, I have a team that I think we could rank a lot lower, but just because I think they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, and I think that when it's a Mike Tomlin led team and you've got a veteran quarterback back there, I think you can expect an 8-9 season, 9-8 season. But it's really contingent on that because if the Steelers don't land Aaron Rodgers, and I mean they no longer have George Pickens, these rankings were made before George Pickens was traded. I don't know what you do at that point. Then you're headed for a 2-15 season. So I think the Steelers are in a bad spot. I think their wide receiver two is Roman Wilson, who we haven't seen anything from yet, but maybe now that he's recovered, now that he's ready to play a full role, we'll get to see some fireworks out of him. But I don't think there's much to talk about the Steelers. I think it all hinges on Aaron Rodgers signing, whether he does or not.
Yeah, so honestly, like I said before, I don't know what the Steelers are thinking. I don't know why they let DK walk. I don't know why they haven't figured out this QB situation. Because if I were in the Steelers position, I don't want Mason Rudolph starting, point blank, period. And you have rumors of TJ wanting to leave soon. So if you don't start winning soon, if you don't start going over 9-8 every season and stop being first round exits, you're going to start losing your valuable players because DK has been on a team that's been on first round exits or not making playoffs for most of his career, all of his career actually. So if he continues on that cycle, he will request another trade, and we know that because he just requested a trade from Seattle.
If I'm the Steelers right now, looking at the fact that I just traded away George Pickens, I'm taking offers for TJ Watt. If I can maybe get a first rounder out of a trade for TJ Watt, I mean, he's getting older, maybe multiple first rounders if you're lucky from a team who has a good outlook on the future. But I think you need to kind of leverage that and just kind of go crazy with it. See what you can get for TJ Watt, see what the value is on him, because I think a team who is in contention, who just needs to make that last move to get their final finish, will pay high on TJ Watt as of right now. Now, the second he gets injured, maybe this season, next season, or has a less productive season, now you've lost your biggest asset. And I think in terms of a rebuild, if that's what the Steelers are heading toward, you need to trade away all your important pieces if you're going to commit to a rebuild. So we'll
Yeah,
see what's going.
Yeah, I do see a rebuild coming towards the Steelers' way. I feel like that's kind of what they're setting up over here. And even if they do let TJ Watt walk, or if they trade him away, something like that, they have Jack Sawyer, who I think is a pretty good pickup for them. I don't know if he's going to start this year or if he's going to play it as a backup, but I do think he has potential to start as one of their main guys. You can have him on the other side of TJ Watt, but because TJ Watt definitely needed that help on the line. Steelers defense overall, it's all right. It's nothing crazy, but I do see a rebuild coming. So if they wanted to get rid of some of their weapons for these first round picks, I say go for it because that might be their smartest move.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Who'd you have next at number 14?
Number 14, we have my Seattle Seahawks. Honestly, I wanted to put them higher, but the Seahawks, they did really good this offseason. I think trading away Gino was a smart decision because he was going to ask for too much money. Because now the Raiders have him for 3 years, at, I think around 130 million or something like that. And if that's what he wanted from the Seahawks, I don't think he was worth it just because of how he's played. So he's played pretty mediocre. Like I will say, like he was a decent quarterback, but he's getting old. He wants too much money, especially for his age. So Sam Darnold, great pickup just because of his season last year. I do think it was a fluke, so I'm kind of scared as to how he will play next year. And the DK trade broke my heart. I almost cried. So I mean, but JSN is the best wide receiver in the league, so I think he will be. I think he will be able to carry them. And we have Cooper Cup now. So that offense is looking pretty good. Kenneth Walker as the running back, Zach Charbonnet, and then defense we got Nick Emonwari. I think that was very good pickup. That was very much a steal. We also got Gray Zabel as he played center in college. I think they want to switch him to guard, which honestly that's not a bad idea because we do need help on that O line wherever we can get it.
Yeah, the Seahawks did some really smart moves, made some really smart moves this year, and also made some questionable moves that I feel like will pay off in the long run. I think you were right about the Geno Smith trade. The DK Metcalf trade was unfortunate, but you're right. They're going to trust Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they want to go to a more slot-centered offense, which also means running the ball more. And they kind of want to make things happen quickly. And Sam Darnold is a guy who was able to make things happen quickly in the Minnesota offense. It just matters how the protection holds up. But something I really want to talk about when it comes to the Seahawks is their wide receiver three position. Right now, everyone's assuming it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think Torrey Horton out of Colorado State University is going to be the wide receiver three for the Seahawks, and he's going to be the wide receiver two when Cooper Kupp gets hurt or when Cooper Kupp is gone because this guy is a star. I watched him absolutely torch the Buffalo's defense when he was playing against Shador and Travis, and that was just one game. If you watch the rest of his tape, he absolutely flames anyone who's in front of him, and I think the reason he fell was like an injury in which he played the first 6 games of the season, maybe 8 games of the season, and then got hurt for the last 40%. But it's an injury that's not degenerative. It's an injury that is not something that's recurring. So what are we really concerned about? You got potentially a round two. In my opinion, I thought he was a round one guy. Prior to when he got injured, you got him in round five. And I think he complements JSN just so well. He's an outside guy. He's a guy who can make those slant routes happen. He kind of reminds me a little bit of CeeDee Lamb in the way that he plays. And if you've got a slot receiver in JSN, you've got a CeeDee Lamb on your roster, and you have a competent quarterback in Sam Darnold or Jalen Milroe, I mean, I think we're looking at an offense that has a very good outlook over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think Seahawks did very good on this offensive. Uh, they did more offensive kind of moves this offseason, which is very good because Mike McDonald is a very defensive minded coach. But we already have Julian Love, we have Devin Witherspoon, we have a very solid D line, Leonard Williams, we have Boy May, we have all these guys that can make plays. They've made plays too, so I think all of that is just that's going to really help us in the long run. And I think the Seahawks are getting projected to win like 3 games this season, and that's actually making me very upset because there's no way we lose. I say we win at least 12, maybe 10 games.
That's a hot take. Seahawks winning 10, 12 games. You heard it here first. Stamp it. Next pick we had up was pick number 13, and we are going back to back with our teams. 13, I'm gonna pick Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that the Bucks are a consistent team. They're a team that consistently win the division, consistently lose in the first round, and I think that Baker might be ready for that next step. He kind of has the same offense as last year, and I don't feel like the Bucks did anything super memorable on offense in the draft. Just because it's going to be tough for Emeka Egbuka to kind of carve out a role with Chris Godwin being pretty much ready to play Week 1. Maybe in the first couple weeks he'll come back, but it's just going to be hard for Egbuka to kind of carve out a role. McMillan had a great end to the season. He had a touchdown every single game, and Baker and him whipped up some really good chemistry. So I don't think they did anything super memorable, but I love the pick of Igbuka. I think that he's going to be such a fun player in this offense, especially when Godwin is no longer there, and or when Mike Evans is gone next. So it's going to be a really fun next couple of years for Tampa. But as far as this year's outlook goes, it's kind of tough to put them anywhere except just winning the division and then losing in the first round because there's so much competition in the NFC, and they usually play the Eagles in the first round because the Eagles are usually the number one seed and the Bucks are usually the four. So it makes it tough for the Bucks to really do anything memorable. But I think the team is going to continue to produce. One of my favorite players who's going to continue to break out this year is Bucky Irving. I'm hoping for a potential RB1, RB2 season out of him with the likes of Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. We'll see how the line holds up. What do you think of the Bucks offseason?
Honestly, I thought it was pretty good. It's one of those. The Bucks are one of those teams where they need help in certain situations, just to stay where they're at. I feel like they're trying to maintain a winning season type of team right now because that's what they've had. They've been first. They've been first in their division because the division is just terrible, and they've been first round exit. So I think they're trying to figure out how to get through that first round of the playoffs and kind of break through into the next round maybe and maybe go to conference finals or something like that. Because honestly, other than Emeka Ibuka, I didn't really see anyone that who I did like. I did like Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson, I really liked him. I was kind of sad that he fell all the way down to where he got picked. I think he's a great receiver. I don't care if he's undersized. He's He's one of the better receivers I've seen in this draft.
Yeah, one thing I will tell you about Tez Johnson, he will never see the field as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I will guarantee you, promise you right now, Tez Johnson will not be seeing the field as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer this season, along with Shiloh Sanders.
You know, he got signed. Shiloh got signed.
He got signed to the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he's able to do in training camp. He's a fun guy. He's got a lot of energy. But for them to both make the 53 is going to be really tough with the depth we have at both positions. Speaking on the defensive depth, my favorite pick of the draft for the Buccaneers was their second round selection in Benjamin Morrison. He's a guy who really produces, and he's a guy who's locked down on the outside, on the inside. I think he's going to make an impact from day one. I think there's guys out there that the Buccaneers have. Zion McCullum, Jamel Dean is also still there. So there's some good depth there, but I think Benjamin Morrison could truly be the future for the Buccaneers on the defensive side.
All right, next up, we have the Chicago Bears at 12.
Biggest riser of this season.
Honestly, they might be off-season champs for the fourth year in a row. Bears are doing pretty good. I feel like they should have re-signed Keenan Allen. I thought that until they picked up Luther Burden. I didn't think they would go another wide receiver this draft, but the fact that Luther Burden fell to, I think it was a third round pick, that was pretty easy pickup for the Bears. Colston Loveland, I was very surprised he got taken over Tyler Warren. I've said this last week. Tyler Warren was my favorite tight end in the draft, and since Genty was taken, I thought they'd either go wide receiver or tight end. And I guess maybe Ben Johnson has his vision, but I'm not too sure. I still think Tyler Warren should have went, just because his tape was so good. Like his tape was so good.
I think one of the biggest things in football is that when you surround a great quarterback with a great offensive line, it doesn't matter what weapons he has out there. Patrick Mahomes turned Rashee Rice into an absolute demon speedster. Pat Mahomes turned Xavier Worthy into a guy who was generating 70 to 80 yards per week. And I'm not saying that these guys weren't good. These guys are very good football players, but you've got a wide receiver core of DJ Moore, Luther Burden, and Rome Odunze. You've got your tight end room of Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, and you've got an offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson. Now, the running back room is a little bit shaky, but when you give a quarterback that many weapons, a great quarterback, or I'll say a good quarterback for now, we haven't seen the greatness from Caleb Williams yet, but when you put them in that type of situation, they're meant to succeed. And I think this is going to be a huge year for Caleb Williams. And we haven't even tapped into the defensive side of the ball where they've made a ton of improvements. They've got a great safety, they've got a great secondary, and I think their D line maybe needs a little bit of work, but it's at that point where they're a team that I think could contend to be in a championship game. I think it's going to be tough for them to make a Super Bowl this season at least, but Caleb Williams, in my opinion, is a very good quarterback, and he didn't have the help that he needed last season.
See, the only reason I say the Bears wouldn't make playoffs this season is just because of the competition in their division. You got the Packers, you got the Lions, you got the Vikings, and you got the Bears. These are four teams that are doing great things, not only during the season, but even during the offseason. We know that the Vikings had a pretty weak offseason, but each one of these teams, they make this division so difficult to actually make playoffs. And the fact that they play each other two games a year for each, that's two games you can lose just in the division, and you really have no idea how each of those games are going, because that's how competitive this division is. I really think it's the hardest division in football.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you look at last year where they had one division winner and two wild card teams. And now, if we're talking about those three same teams, Packers, Lions, and Vikings, remaining at that same level that they were at last season, I mean, there's no way that you can really expect all three NFC wildcard teams to be from the same division. That would be absolutely blasphemous. And I'd love to see it because I want all four teams in the playoffs. But I think that the team that's going to drop out is the Packers. I think the Packers are confused.
Really.
So, yeah, I mean, I have them much higher on our power rankings as far as what they'll do. But I do think the Bears are a more serious contender.
See, I would say that the Vikings drop out of this year's playoffs just because I think that JJ McCarthy won't be able to lead this team as of right now. I think you give him, if he had a QB to develop behind, then maybe he could. Because even last year, I was saying that JJ McCarthy wasn't going to be ready to start and they would need to have someone in front of him. I thought they would keep Kirk, get JJ McCarthy, and then have him play a year behind him, kind of like what they did with Michael Penix in Atlanta. But I say just let JJ McCarthy start, and then you're probably not going to do good. You'll probably be at the bottom of the division, maybe 5, 6 wins, something like that.
Well, let me just say it right now. My dark horse candidate for the NFL season, for this upcoming NFL season, is Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams is going to throw for 4,000 yards, he's going to throw for over 30 touchdowns, and less than 10 interceptions. Stamp it right now.
Yeah, he's gonna do something no Bears quarterback has ever done, which still is crazy. I don't know how the Bears have not have a quarterback that threw for over 4,000 yards.
Well, I think that's what you get when you get Justin Fields. But I think something that I do want to say is I really like how the Bears have managed these last 3 seasons. You went from a team that had Justin Fields, you had I forget who the wide receiver two was. I know DJ Moore was there
Darnell
after,
Mooney.
but yeah, there. I thought Rondale Moore was there for a season. I don't know. There was a lot of confusion there on that team for a while, and I think that the way that the Bears managed it and really built up this powerhouse of a roster just off of that one trade that they made with the Panthers to give them the number one overall pick. Like that was truly incredible, and the way that they've worked after that has been really good.
That might have been the greatest fleece of all time.
Well, we got to see where Bryce Young ends up because if Bryce Young ends up better than Caleb Williams, then it's the opposite way around.
Well, yeah, I don't even think that matters because Caleb Williams has all the weapons he needs to succeed. So there's no way he does like terrible. He'll be mediocre at best. Bryce Young, all he really has is Ted McMillan right now and Chuba Hubbard.
Do not forget Jimmy Horn Jr.
That's not enough for the Panthers to succeed, especially because the Bucks are easily taking that division. I don't. There's no other competition. The Falcons maybe, but like, I don't know. The Falcons they need to figure out what's going on with them. Because do you think Michael Penix can start and be productive as a starting quarterback after sitting behind Kirk for almost the entire year?
I think Kirk Cousins was exactly what Michael Penix needed because Michael Penix is good at short range. He's got good accuracy, throws the ball on a rope. I felt like he didn't have the instincts that an NFL quarterback needed in terms of dropping the ball in the bucket or making the decision to maybe take a sack, throw the ball away. And I think that's something that Kirk does well. I think Michael Penix also is good with mobility, whereas Kirk wasn't good with mobility. So it kind of helps him understand how do I stay in the pocket and deliver a good throw from here rather than I'm going to run around, scramble for a little bit, throw the ball from the sideline. And then you're looking at the ball going out of bounds or getting picked off because that's obviously a much harder throw to make rather than from standing in the pocket and just making the throw. So I think that I would hope that those are the things that he learned from Kirk Cousins, and we'll see how he does going forward. Um, as far as the next pick, we've got the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are going to be a good team this season because Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback. Matthew Stafford is a quality quarterback in the NFL, and Puka Nacua is a top three receiver in the NFL right now. As far as my list,
Oh,
we got Justin Jefferson number one, Jamar Chase number two, Puka Nacua at number three. He is my third best receiver
whoa,
in the NFL.
whoa, whoa! You're putting Puka Nakua over C.D. Lamb, A.J. Brown,
100%.
Nico Collins. No way.
Name
I
another
get
one. Name another receiver.
best. Okay, I'll put it. This is my top 10 would probably be just off the top of my head. I'd have uh, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, C.D. Lamb, A.J. Brown, Nico Collins, Terry McLaurin. I put Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then I'd put Puka Nakua. I'd put him.
So let me
I'd
let
put
me
him higher in the 10. I wouldn't put him in the top 10.
Dome. I'm gonna say Justin Jefferson and Jamar are one A, one B. I'm not even gonna determine who's A and who's B because I think they're equal. Like I said, my number two, or we'll say number three. My number three is Puka Nacua. My number four, let's think. I'd say my number four is probably Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Ooh,
My number
forgot about him.
five is I'll go AJ Brown at number five. I'll go Terry McLaurin at number six. I'll go Malik Neighbors at number seven. I'll go.
Yeah, I forgot some big names, huh?
I'm gonna go Travis. No, I'll put Travis. I actually won't include Travis on my list. I'll go Garrett
No
Wilson
way.
at number eight. I'm going Mike Evans at number nine. I think Mike Evans is legendary, and Devontae Adams at number 10.
Really? So you wouldn't put Brian Thomas Jr. anywhere in that list? Too
Not yet.
hidden.
I think he's like somewhere between 11 and 13.
Mm,
I think there's a slew of receivers. I think JSN is in there. I think that there's a lot of players who are in that 11 to 15, 11 to 20 range.
yeah.
But getting back to the Rams, they made some okay moves this offseason, but I thought last offseason is where they really killed it. I think Braden Fisk and Jared Verse really upped that defense to kind of bottle everyone, and I thought they did well in the postseason last season where they really could have won that game. The Eagles almost handed it to them, but I know that Puka couldn't come down in a catch. Matt Stafford couldn't make that final throw, but they were really, I think they were like 3 or 4 feet off from winning that game. So when you have a team like that coming off a good postseason, I know that Matt Stafford might decline a little bit, but I think there's a lot of depth in the running back room. There's a lot of depth in the wide receiver room. So it's going to be a really interesting year for the Rams where I think their potential isn't a Super Bowl, but it's a championship game. And if they can get there, then that's great for them.
Yeah, I think they have to start finding a replacement for Matt Stafford coming soon. I think maybe they try to trade up one of their star players for maybe a first round pick in a couple of years, get Arch Manning, something like that. They just need to do something to figure out this QB situation because Matt Stafford, although he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, and he has been for a while, but he's getting older now. He's running out of steam. So I think they need to find someone to replace him. Now their defense is, I will say, their defense is pretty good. They have Jared Verse on the line. He showed to be a very, very good player. I really like the way he played last year, and I really don't like the Rams. So you know how that is. I do think they need to work on their secondary a little bit. I feel like they're lacking. I feel like they could have picked up.
Yeah, be Turner.
They could have picked up someone this draft. Maybe they could have picked up Maxwell Harrison, Will Johnson, one of those types of guys, just to get a solid corner in that room.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done for the Rams, but I think that they're a very good team. And I think their pickup of Chris Paul Jr. this offseason was fun coming from a basketball fan, but also I think he was a good pickup. I think he's a good player. Going to our next pick at number 10, who did you have?
The Houston Texans. I I
Houston Texans, man.
I just think they're a pretty decent team. I think they're in the same boat as like the Chargers, where they're kind of like a first round exit. The Chargers, if the Chiefs weren't so good, the Chargers would definitely win that division. Maybe the Broncos, but I think the Texans, they didn't do anything crazy. They kind of just had a pretty bland offseason, in my opinion. I didn't see anything that's really stood out to me too much. I do think that they will win their division. They can maybe go to a second round playoffs, but it just depends on how CJ Stroud plays. And I think maybe they should have gotten another receiver to kind of help if Tank Dell really isn't going to come back, because you do have to worry about that injury. He was out for most of last season, and they lost Stephon Diggs. So I'm not
Definitely
really
receiver replacement because they picked up Higgins in the second round and they love him. He was 34th pick in the draft, or I believe, yeah, number 34 in the draft. And then they picked up his college teammate, Jalen Noel. Both of them had over 1,000 receiving yards last season. Both of them are absolutely speedy, versatile receivers. So I think whether Tank Dell comes back or not, it doesn't really matter for them because I mean, maybe he plays that wide receiver 3 spot, but I think that receiver 2 spot is gone. With him being 5'10, 180, and Jaden Higgins being 6'4, 210, those are very different receiver bodies, and we've seen how CJ Stroud does throwing to big receivers. So with him and Nico both kind of operating the sides, maybe Tank becomes a slot guy, but I know that Noel also played well in the slot. So then you're looking at Tank Dell maybe not having a role on this team. So I think they got that receiver replacement, and the Texans are in a good spot this year. But it's a kind of a prove it season for CJ Stroud. Like, go win your division. That should be easy enough. Now, as far as that goes, go win in the postseason too. We need to see CJ Stroud take this team to a championship game. And I understand that, it is his second, third season. So
Yeah, I really just I'm not really sold on these new wide receivers just yet. I need to see some actual production for them before I even say anything. Just because I'm not really the biggest fan of rookie wide receivers. The only receivers that really stood out to me in this draft were, I mean, Travis Hunter, Emeka Ibuka, Luther Burden, those type of guys. So I'm not really sure about these later round receiver picks. I mean, I guess they did go second
or
and third, but I think that might have been. I think they could have fallen much later in the draft.
Yeah, definitely. Number 9, I picked up the Denver Broncos, who are a very consistent team, really well coached. Bo Nix is a guy that seems like everyone wants Bo Nix to be their quarterback. Like I feel like a lot of teams want a leader like that who's going to come into the clubhouse and from day one, just be a guy who's going to be consistent, who's going to hit his throws. He's going to pass the ball off well. He's not going to make any dumb decisions. And, I think a knock on Bo Nix was he's old and maybe he won't have the mobility as some of those other guys, but he shows that he does. I mean, he had a good amount of rushing touchdowns last season in between the tackles and really displayed his toughness. I think he caught a touchdown pass as well. So, Bo Nix has really shown us some stuff. I think the part that I'm most concerned about for the Broncos is what's the pecking order in their wide receiver room? Because we know that number 1 is Cortland Sutton, but who's number 2? Is it Troy Franklin? Is it Devon Vele? Is it Pat Bryant? Is it someone else that we haven't even heard of yet? Like there's no consistency there, and there's no production there. And same thing with the running back room too. I know RJ Harvey was a good pickup, but rookie running backs we can never be sure about. Estime had honestly I thought was a pretty bad season last season when he was given the opportunity, and McMillan is more of kind of a passing down back. So it's just those types of chess pieces are the ones that really need to move. I thought the pick that they did well with in the draft was grabbing a tight end for Bo Nix. I know Krull's there. I know that there's some sort of talent in that room, but picking up at least an option at tight end in the draft was definitely important for them.
Yeah, I think that the Broncos they really should have just worked on that receiver room as much as possible. Give Bo Nix some more weapons. Picking up a tight end that was definitely a good idea for them. But if you were gonna draft receiver in the third round, I'm sure there were other options other than Pat Bryant. I I think Luther Burden also went in the third round.
He was one of the first picks of the second round.
But yeah, I just think they should have gotten that
Yeah.
receiver room fixed up. Trying to see what pick.
Yeah, I think he was. Let's see.
I think you're right. Luther Burden did go in the.
Yeah, he went early just because he was projected as maybe even a first round talent. So then, yeah, he was round 2, pick 7. So yeah, but I mean I agree with you at the fact that why did the Broncos wait until round 3 to grab a receiver, because they clearly need some help. Like I think they could have drafted someone better probably with their first round pick, but then there's not a lot of options there, so it kind of makes it tough. I know Marvin Mims is there too, speedster, but when you have guys who specialize in one specific skill, it makes it difficult to create a versatile wide receiver room.
Yeah, I just don't think they had enough picks this season just to do anything they really wanted to for that receiver room. I will say the Broncos have one of the better defenses in the NFL right now. They have my favorite cornerback in the league, Pat Surtain. So I think if they can figure out how to win with Bo Nix, which they did last season, so I think they need to figure out how to take that and kind of push it forward a little bit more, just to get more production, as much production as they can get out of Bo Nix. Because he's shown to be a pretty solid QB coming out of college, even though he is kind of old. Like you said, they were worried about mobility issues and whatnot, but he showed he can run. He showed he can throw. I feel like you just need to find. He just needs to find his targets now. That's all he needs to do, and then the Broncos could succeed. It depends on the Chiefs if they win the division, or if the Chiefs do worse than they did last year. Broncos are taking that division. I still think that the Broncos take the division this year over this Kansas City Chiefs.
Whoa, hot take. Big hot take. Well,
I I think with Sean Payton at coaching, you have that defense. They picked up I forgot they picked up some people from the Niners. I do remember that they took like two Niners linebackers. Yeah, they got Dre Greenlaw and they got I can't even say his name. Talona Hafunga. But yeah,
Talon, yeah.
they got those two. They picked up some guys in the draft, so I do think that defense is going to be pretty good. I don't. I think that defense will be enough to stop Patrick Mahomes, but I don't know how they'll do against the run because that's the only thing that on their defense that really is somewhat lacking. But yeah, I think the Broncos could take their division next year and secure a playoff spot.
Jade Barron's gonna be a star, man. Who we got next?
Next up, we have the Chargers. Chargers is just like all these other teams where they did stuff and they didn't do stuff. There was probably a lot more they could have done. Probably stuff they should have done. Should not have done.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job in the draft, though. At least picking up Trey Harris and Amarian Hampton. I thought Amarian Hampton was a home run pick because anytime you draft a round one running back, they're always going to be productive. And Amarian Hampton has all the tools to be that guy. It's just a matter of how the pecking order shakes out and whether he's given the opportunity this year or next year. Because with Najee being on a 1 year deal, them drafting a round one running back, Najee's not going to be around past this season. And if he is, he's a glorified RB3, RB2. So. And I don't think Najee's going to accept that coming from someone who was a round one running back. I think he's going to find a home where he can be a primary ball carrier. And, the Chargers just wouldn't draft Hampton without knowing he'll be the starter at least in year two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly, Omarion Hampton was definitely my favorite. Other than Genty, he was my favorite running back in the draft. I wanted the Bears to take him at their pick, but I guess they went Colson Loveland. But I do think he takes a spot over Najee just because Najee. I don't know if he'll be able to. I don't know. I didn't like him that much on the Steelers. I don't know if I'll like him on the Chargers either. Even though he does probably have a better O line on the Chargers than he did at the Steelers. So he does have that run protectors. But other than that, I think Chargers. It all depends on Herbert. It all depends on Herbert and who he can throw to, because I don't think um, I don't think he has anyone besides Lad McConkey to throw to.
I think
None of
Trey
the,
Harris is going to be really good.
you think so?
I mean, he was very productive at Ole Miss, and he's a guy who can kind of fit into their offense right away. It also, I think, some of it's dependent on, I guess, I want to say Quentin Johnston, because
I was
I
gonna
don't
bring that up.
what he's able to do. Like maybe they get that deep threat or like that large threat because Lad is not very big and Trey is also not very big, so it doesn't allow for Herbert to have his Mike Williams kind of guy. But I actually think it's more dependent on the game plan that they run because the Chargers are known for just hammering the ball in the run. And I think that they just need to continue doing that. I don't think you should go away from your philosophy just because you have maybe a better team now and better options at wide receiver. I think you continue to hammer the run and allow Lad McConkey to get into space, and then Trey Harris can slot in where he fits. But I think if Harbaugh continues to use the same mentality that he's been doing, he did it at Michigan, he did it in Baltimore, he did it at Michigan. Now he's doing the same thing in LA. Chargers are set up to have a very good season.
I do think Omarion Hampton is a perfect fit for this Chargers offense. I think his play style matches what they were doing last year with their running backs, and but yeah, that's. I think I really want Omarion Hampton to succeed. That's what it was. I really liked his college tape, and I think he can do great things with Harbaugh at coach.
Yeah, definitely. Next here, the team that I said had the most potential out of the division to fall out of the playoffs, the Green Bay Packers. They're a team that has a lot of possibility to move up or move down because with Jordan Love, you're either going to get a guy who is consistent and responsible or he's just going to be kind of chucking the ball around and be irresponsible. And I just don't know which one you get on game day. And then with Josh Jacobs, I understand he was productive last season, but he's getting towards the older side of running backs, about to be 29 years old. And I think he'll be equally as productive, but there's just so many questions for the Packers. Like, who is your wide receiver one? Was it Golden, who has the exact same build as Jaden Reed, or is it Jaden Reed, who has been an explosive guy, but like is kind of like a boomer bust every single week, whether he wants to or whether they want to give him opportunity or not. So you got two receivers who could be your wide receiver one, who are the exact same build, which is never an opportunity, never a recipe for success. And then the rest of your wide receiver room kind of just thins out after that. You got Wicks, you got Dobbs, you got Christian Watson, who's going to be coming back from injury. You got a couple other players. I think Savion Williams. I think that's what he has. Savion Williams was also taken by the Packers. So
Yeah,
there's just so many questions to be asked about the depth of that team. One of the bright spots, who I think is going to have a major breakout this season. He's kind of been breaking out the last two seasons. Is Tucker Kraft. He's a guy who actually reminds me a lot of the Kelseys and the Gronkowskis of the tight end world. So we'll see what he's able to do. Last year was kind of a big play threat, but If he can be more consistent this season, maybe the Packers do well.
Yeah, I see. I thought the Packers were going to get their number one guy this year at receiver, but I don't know. Matthew Golden. It seems like they just have 4 or 5 wide receiver twos on their offense now. I don't think any of these guys are real wide receiver one caliber. If they did want a wide receiver one, I don't know why they didn't trade for DK Metcalf. Because in my opinion, you have Romeo Dobbs, you have Christian Watson, you have what's his name, Jaden Reed. You have all these guys. You could easily trade one of those guys away and a second round pick for DK Metcalf, for George Pickens, someone like that, because they have already established themselves to be wide receiver ones. Even Cooper Kupp or Chris Godwin, they were also on the trade block this season. There were so many receivers you could have picked up. T. Higgins, any one of these guys, you would have had your number one guy, and you didn't do it. So that was a very big sell for the Packers. They could have gotten their wide receiver one, but now they have 5 wide receiver twos.
Yeah, Golden's gonna have to really do something special in order for them to get that wide receiver one. Um, just kind of quickly jumping into the next team. I think we talked about the Packers before, so we'll move on quickly to
Yeah.
uh, who was your team at number 6?
Number 6, we got the Washington Commanders. Now, I don't know how they managed it, but the Washington Commanders somehow went from being in a rebuild. Because last year, that was definitely supposed to be a rebuild year. They were not supposed to make it to the NFC Championship game. That was insane. I think the moves the front office made to hire a new coach, Dan Quinn, he did great. He knew exactly what he was doing taking Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, definitely the best quarterback coming out of last year. And not only that, he paired him up with Scary Terry, man. That was definitely a scary combo over there.
Yeah, the Commanders' wide receiver room is going to be interesting. A lot of this hinges on the fact that Jaden Daniels is able to throw the ball, but just with his throwing motion, with his ability to run after and make a good play, he just reminds me of a quarterback who's going to be good for a long time. So that's always exciting. Terry McLaurin is going to continue to be good. I actually don't think that Debo remains the number 2 for very long. I think he's going to get replaced by someone. I don't know who it's going to be. I know Luke McCaffrey is there, but I don't know. Debo is a guy who's just been consistently declining, and now if you can only use him as like a yards after the catch weapon, I don't know how much Jaden Daniels is going to use that. I know he liked it some last season, and he's got okay receivers as running backs, but I don't know. I just don't know how much they're going to use Debo Samuel, so I think he could be kind of a dropper this season. But Commanders have an extremely bright future with the youngest quarterback who's really doing it out there.
Yeah, I think Debo was an interesting pickup. I I feel like if you're gonna get that kind of veteran guy, well, you kind of needed to put a good rookie behind him. So if you wanted to work on that wide receiver room, why didn't you take someone in the first 2 rounds? Because they took a wide receiver in the 4th round. I can't remember who it was, but if you wanted to build on your receiver room, why didn't you take someone better in the first maybe 2 or 3 rounds?
Yeah, right now they've got Debo in the slot and Noah Brown as the opposing wide receiver to Terry McLaurin, who is a very good waiver wire pickup in all fantasy football leagues in week 13. I will say that, but he's a solid player, and but yeah, the Commanders need to kind of figure out what direction they're going in with their wide receiver core. Let's jump into the top 5. Our top 5 NFL teams this season.
Who did you have
Starting off
number 5?
number 5, I'm gonna pick the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are one of the elite teams of the NFL, but I think that this year could be that fall to grace because they lost Ben Johnson, and although he wasn't their entire team, he was really fun to have in their offense and really liked to run some of those special plays. And I don't know how much of that came from Dan Campbell. So if he can kind of maintain that same culture that's in the Detroit Lions room, then yeah, we could be looking at a team that continues to have success. But when you have an aging guy like Jared Goff, and then you have a interesting receiver in Jameson Williams, who you're not sure is your number 2, and then you have a great running back tandem. I'm just not sure that spells out success. I know that tells me that they're going to the playoffs, and it tells me that they'll probably win in the first round of the playoffs. But is this a Super Bowl caliber team? In my opinion, no. And then to go out in round 3 and draft Isaac Tesla, really cool name, dude. But he's not I didn't feel like his production spelled out that he's a round three receiver that the Lions needed to trade up to go and grab. Like there were so many options on the board. Um, but I think rookies, it's important to let them test it out. But evidently, I didn't feel like the Lions changed enough this offseason to change them from a team that was getting destroyed in the championship game to all of a sudden a team that's going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think for the Lions, it's do or die. This is the season where they really have to make something work. They have to figure out whether, okay, are we going to replace Jared Goff in this future, like next maybe 2 seasons? It's kind of a similar Matt Stafford situation. They have the entire team is set up for success. They have a QB that can play well in that system. They have a good running back system. They have a good coaching. They have a decent defense. I think that's the only thing that's really lacking. So my question is, what is stopping the Detroit Lions from going and winning a Super Bowl? Because it seems like you have the blueprint right there. Like you have everything you need, and you still haven't made it. You haven't made it past the first round. The only reason you made it past the first round is because you were they had the bye week last season, correct?
I believe so. Yeah. Yep. They
Yes.
had number one team.
Yeah, so they were number one last year, and that's the only reason. You can't be regular season demons. That's not going to do anything for you. It, like you, I just don't know what the Lions are going to do if they can't win this season. If they don't make it past, if they don't win one playoff game this season, then that's they're kind of just going to go downhill from there. Because last season um, they played the Rams in the first round and they won, and then they made it. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship. So I don't know.
Not last season was the Eagles and the Commanders in the championship game.
Oh,
They
I
got
meant
destroyed
two
by the
seasons.
Commanders. Oh yeah, 2 seasons
Yeah,
ago. Yeah,
yeah,
2 seasons ago, we were looking at a very promising Lions team that
yeah,
I was hoping, praying that they were going to make the Super Bowl that season, and then the Niners had to crush our dreams. But
yeah.
yeah, the Lions are in an okay spot, but I think the problem is Jared Goff. He threw 2 picks to a rookie, Mike Sanderson, who I want to say top 5 corner in the NFL. Over the next 2 seasons, you guys will hear Mike Sanderson's names, but he had 2 huge picks on Jared Goff last season in that game. And I think that if you're a veteran quarterback, you just can't be making those types of mistakes if you want to win a Super Bowl.
Not only that, 6 interceptions against the Houston Texans.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Six. Like you're
Ridiculous.
supposed to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. You cannot be dropping 6 interceptions in one game. I think he had 4 interceptions on the season. He went to like 8 or 10 or something like that, depending on how much he had before. But you cannot be dropping the like you can't be giving the defense the ball this many times. And somehow they still won that game, which I was watching that game live. I was very surprised.
Yeah, the Lions have some adjustments to make, but let's jump into our next team. Here's where things get really spicy. So who'd you pick up here at number 4? The only 4 teams we have left to be picked are the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, and Eagles. So who'd you go with here at number 4?
I went with the Chiefs at number 4 just because I think Patrick Mahomes is the only reason that they are good. Right now, they're losing players pretty frequently. They lost Rasheed Rice. They lost Isaiah Pacheco. They'll probably be back, but I don't know how good they'll be after they come back.
Look, I know there's a lot of discussion about it. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. To put it plain and simple, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. Now, whether he can complete it this year with his team or not is up to him. But he's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's the best quarterback that we've had since Tom Brady, and he's going to get his next Super Bowl this season because he's angry now. And he's coming for revenge. The Chiefs are my 2026 Super Bowl team.
Really. See, I don't know if the Chiefs. I think they get eliminated this year in playoffs. I don't think they get the first. They don't get the first seed. I think that goes to either the Bills or the Ravens. I think the Chiefs maybe get like a 3 or 4 slot. Or if the Broncos somehow take the division, which I think they will, and then the Chiefs get maybe a 6, 7 spot. And I don't think they make it past the second round. I think the Chiefs they've had their 15 minutes of fame, or they've had all their glory. I think now these other teams are starting to step it up and realize, okay, this team has been good for too long. We don't want another Patriots dynasty, so we're gonna have to find a way to counter them. And the Bills too, they're gonna have to find a way to counter the Chiefs if they're gonna keep losing to them in the conference finals.
This year is Mahomes' legacy year. Like, are you a guy who is going to win three, four Super Bowls, and be a great quarterback? I mean, three, four Super Bowls. We're already talking about Mahomes as the
Mhm.
second greatest quarterback in the history of the sport. But are you going to remain that guy, or are you going to take that Tom Brady jump where he's winning with teams that have nobody on them? I mean, he won so many Super Bowls where you can't even name three wide receivers who are on the field. So is Mahomes going to be able to do that? And then, I mean, Brady did it at 40 years old as well. So how much is Mahomes' longevity going to hold up? And I think this season is a really definitive season for him. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of a do or die thing just for Patrick Mahomes. I do think he can bounce back, but it might be just like he'll be a shadow of his former self. That's what it is. Once he starts getting older, I feel like his progress and his production will start slowing down drastically.
for sure. Next team that I had was at number three. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills with the former NFL or the current reigning NFL MVP Josh Allen. Now, in my opinion, the award should have gone to Lamar Jackson, but we'll talk about him in a minute. Um, Josh Allen is the most talented quarterback in the NFL currently. He's got the biggest arm, he's got the biggest body, and he just has all the physical traits that you would want in a quarterback. Now, I think the big knock when it comes to Josh Allen is his decision making. Let's go back to the AFC Championship game of last season when the Bills had a chance to win the game. We're talking about we're sitting here at first and 10 and we need to make a play to get a field goal. That's all we need is to get a field goal, right? We're sitting at the opponent's 40-yard line. We need about, let's say, 27 yards to secure a 50-yard field goal, and we're set up to win the game. Now, Josh Allen had four chances here. With his first throw, he almost threw a pick. Ball pops out of the corner's hands. His second throw, he almost throws a pick. Now we're looking at a 3rd and 10 situation, but it's Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen can get out of anything. You know, he's got 2 downs to make it happen. It's the end of the game, so you're a 4-down team. On 3rd down, Josh Allen throws a check down pass. He gets his 5 yards, which is great. He throws a check down pass to Amari Cooper. I think you throw that check down pass to Khalil Shakir and let him pick up some yak. Instead, you get old man Cooper. He gets your 5 yards. He gets no yak. You're sitting there at 4th and 5. Now, here's where the big decision came for Josh Allen. He's sitting there in the pocket. He knows that Sark is going to attack him Spags. He knows that Spags is going to attack him. He knows he's going to blitz him off the line immediately on 4th down. He's got Khalil Shakir running a little whip route, coming behind him and going around to the left side. Now, the second he snapped the ball, his eyes should have immediately turned to Khalil Shakir on his left side. Instead, he went for the home run play. And honestly, I thought he made a great throw. I thought his throw, I know it was kind of random and kind of loopy, but I thought the throw was good, and I thought that Dalton Kincaid dropped it. But why would you put the ball in the hands of why would you make it a jump ball situation rather than dumping it off to your best yards after the catch guy and letting him make a play? I think he had 20 yards of space right there. And you just put yourself to win the game. But instead, now we're talking about the Chiefs winning the AFC Championship game. So I think that's the knock with Josh Allen. He doesn't make the right decisions in the heat of the moment, which is why like I said, Chiefs are my pick, and they'll continue to be my pick until Josh Allen shows me otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's either going to be Josh Allen or Lamar to take down Mahomes, which that brings us to our next team, which is the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens do have opportunities to take out Mahomes and become that leader of the AFC. And it's kind of just Mahomes and his kids right now. That's what it is. It's just they're trying to get past that one final step, which is literally just Patrick Mahomes, and they no one has been able to do it besides Joe Burrow. That's why he's the best. But I think if Lamar can figure out how to win and how to or not just win because we know he can do good in a regular season. We just need him to stop being a choke artist. That's what he's the Hall of Fame choke artist. Because at least Josh Allen can make it to the conference finals more than once. Lamar just made it, got destroyed, and then he lost again when they played each other in the first game of the season. So I don't know what happens when Lamar plays Patrick Mahomes, but he turns into a different type of player. It's not the normal Lamar we see because for some reason he can't beat Patrick Mahomes.
If there's one player that I could give you that will definitively win a Super Bowl before their career is over, besides Patrick Mahomes, it's Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson is the unluckiest player I've ever seen. That game was entirely on Mark Andrews, and obviously he's a great player, but how bad can you be to fumble the game away first and then to have an opportunity to fumble the game away again, and to do it again. I mean, come on, how is he not cut already? How are we not looking at Isaiah Likely as the number one tight end for the Ravens? I mean, but in all seriousness, Mark Andrews is a good player, but I think Lamar just gets very unlucky. And I think next season he's out to prove him wrong again. But yeah, he's got to get it done. He's got to win the big one, and I think he's a player who is on his way there. I just don't know what season it's going to happen and when he's finally going to get some wide receiver help. Like Zay Flowers is a wide receiver too. He is meant to be a very productive wide receiver too, a guy who can really spread the field. But where's the dominant physical big receiver who's going to make your tough plays down the stretch? Whether that's, I mean, they don't have to be some DK Metcalf type body, but you need someone who is going to make big plays. And I think Zay Flowers does it sometimes, doesn't do it all the time. That's why he's a wide receiver too in my book.
Yeah, it's the same thing with all these teams that do need that extra receiver help. I don't know why they didn't make moves for any receivers in this offseason. You could blame it on cap space, but then just trade a player away. I don't know why teams don't make an effort to fix their problems that they actually need fixing. Because we already established that Lamar is amazing on his feet. We know that Zay Flowers is a great number 2 wide receiver. But he still doesn't have that number 1. Right now, he only has a number 2 wide receiver and a good tight end. Because we're not even talking about Mark Andrews anymore. He should be off the team. Isaiah Likely has shown to be a very good receiving tight end. He produces very well at his position. So the only thing that's missing on that offense is a wide receiver 1. You have Derrick Henry and Lamar. That is probably the best QB running back duo in the league. Maybe Saquon and Jalen Hurts, but I don't know why you don't find a wide receiver 1. You could have taken someone in the first round. They got, I believe, Malachi Starks as a safety as a first round pick. I think they should have went wide receiver because there was definitely a lot of talent left over in the first round.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do next year. I know D Hop is over there too, so if he can be that bona fide wide receiver 1 guy, but I view Hopkins as more of a number 2 as well now, just with his age. I mean, obviously an elite receiver for his entire career, but he's getting up there now. And
I,
it's
I
about
the
yeah.
only reason D Hop was number 1 at Kansas City was because of Rashee Rice being injured. Because I don't think they were going to put Xavier Worthy at the number 1 position just because he's a rookie. So I don't think D Hop could play 1 or 2 on the Ravens. I think he would be a number 3 if they had someone to play number 1.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But let's jump into our final team, the big boy, the team that I think is the best in football. And let me just break this down for a second. The best team in football, the best team in sports, does not always win the championship. And that's why I say the Chiefs are my pick. I think the Eagles are the best team in football. The Eagles are a team that is managed from the top down as an elite organization. You have an elite quarterback, you have an elite running back, you have 2 elite wide receivers, you have an elite front office, you have an absolutely heart soul crushing defense that
Mm-hmm.
just honestly it takes away your hope to play football. And when you're watching them, these guys just come at you crazy. And then to pick up Jihad Campbell in the draft, a guy who was almost a top 10 pick at one point, like the Eagles are the best and the scariest team in football. But I don't think that Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I think that is the one thing that's going to hold them back from winning multiple championships in the future. From this becoming a team that's considered a dynasty. Only one dynasty is allowed in each sport at one time. And I think the Chiefs will continue to be that dynasty, but the Eagles are a very good team. Their pickup of Jihad Campbell was absolutely necessary, and I mean, it was beautiful. And I think the surgence of Cooper DeJean has arrived. I think Cooper DeJean is going to be talked about as, I mean, he's already talked about it. We see TikTok lists and everything where Cooper DeJean is a top 5 safety in the NFL, top 10 safety, and that's really high, but that's where his ceiling is at this season. And I'm so excited to see what the Eagles are going to do.
The Eagles, they did some questionable things by letting a lot of veterans walk this season. But I think their thought process was, okay, we have these young guys. These young guys have proven themselves to be good, especially because they made it to the Super Bowl and won and just completely blew out what is supposed to be a dynasty team. So I think that's the thought process behind letting a bunch of these veterans walk, which I don't think is the best decision, especially if you're gonna want these rookies or these sophomores coming into the next season, if you're gonna want them to keep producing, I still think you do need a good amount of veteran presence just to kind of guide them through that second season, because the sophomore slump is definitely a real thing. I think C.J. Stroud got hit with a sophomore slump last season, and honestly, we have to see if someone like Jaden Daniels gets hit with it as well.
Yeah, definitely agreed. So yeah, there's our power rankings, guys. Took some time to break it down, but I hope you enjoyed the content that we're making. We're going to be releasing all of this on Spotify and YouTube at 5 p.m. today. And yeah, we're going to continue dropping clips on our Instagram, on our Twitter, on our TikTok.
TikTok, YouTube.
Follow us at the Slot Podcast. We got a lot of
Yep.
good content coming. And actually, I want to ask one question before we hop off. I know I've mentioned several times the Chiefs are my team to win the Super Bowl this season. Who is your pick for the Super Bowl this season?
My pick to win the Super Bowl this season, I'll give you one on AFC and one on NFC. From the NFC side, I would say it has. The only team I could see winning it is the Eagles, just because of how dominant their defense is. I don't think anyone is getting through that, especially not on the NFC side of the league. For the AFC, I do think the Buffalo Bills will make it to the Super Bowl after however many years they've been trying. I think that the Bills they're going to start figuring out what they need to do, especially with their plays and what Josh Allen is capable of. I think they'll be able to figure it out and lock in a Super Bowl this year.
So you got Eagles, Bills. I'm gonna say Bucks, Chiefs because the Bucks are the best team in football. Uh, but yeah, thank you guys for listening. Slot Pod out, and we will see you guys next week.
All right, see ya.